after 5:15, so let's call the meeting to order, and we'll hope to get a quorum in just a minute. But I want to welcome everybody to our May meeting. It's good to see you all. And let's start by doing introductions. I'm Tony Barrett, co-chair of the commission. And so I'd like the commissioners to introduce themselves first. So Deborah, you want to go next and pass it on?
Hi, Deborah Telleria, co-chair of the JJDPC. Monroe?
Sure. I'm Monroe LaBouisse. I'm a commissioner on the commission, and I'll pass it to Susan.
I'm Susan Swope, the commissioner.
I'm Johanna Rasmussen, commissioner.
And you pass it on. Everybody passes it on to the next person. I see Melissa.
Melissa.
Hi, this is Melissa Wilson. I'm a commissioner. I'm passing it on to somebody.
Rebecca.
Yeah. Okay, great, Rebecca. I have a little family emergency that just came up. I will be back as soon as I can, and I ask that the reports that I'm going to give be pushed down the agenda line. Okay? Okay, thank you. Sorry about this.
No worries. Rebecca Flores, co-vice chair of the commission.
Great. Terrific. Well, thank you, commissioners. And now could we have other participants introduce themselves? Melanie, I see you up there on my screen next. Would you start?
Hi, everyone. Melanie Stoffer, probation, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Jehan?
Yeah, Jahan Clark, also probation.
If everybody would just take turns and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hello, everyone. Aurora Pena, BHRS.
Hi, everyone. John Fong, Director of Children and Family Services.
Hi, this is Karen Huber-Levy. I'm a potential commissioner to be sworn in today.
Victor Letcher III, MSW commissioner, about to be sworn in today.
Roxana Enriquez, commissioner, about to be sworn in today.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Fitton. I'm with the Art of Yoga Project.
Welcome. We haven't met you before. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judge Edizati with the courts, and hi, Mary Lynn. It's nice to see you.
Hi, so good to see
Hi.
you all. Thank you. You too. Yeah.
Michael Jones, Boys and Girls Club, Senior Director.
Welcome. Is there anybody else who would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Kimber Joyce. I'm a lieutenant with Mateo PD over our youth services unit.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. MJ Hart, potential commissioner. Good to be in the space with y'all. Hey, Mary Lynn. Hey, good to see you. Much love.
Hey, Missy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Godinez, and I'm a program manager at Casa of San Mateo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ron Reyes for the Private Defender Program, managing attorney for the Juvenile Office.
Tony, I see that Austin has joined us, so we might have a quorum.
Okay. Austin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Austin Willis, Commissioner and Youth Liaison. Sorry for being a little late. I was working on some peer court stuff and I lost track of time.
You're always working on peer court stuff. That's great. Anybody else to introduce themselves? All right, well, let's get started. We do have a quorum. And again, welcome, everyone. Any changes to the agenda that you see? We're going to move Melissa's participation down a little lower in the agenda, but are there any other changes?
None from me.
Okay. All right. The agenda is approved then as distributed. And has everybody gotten a chance to look at the minutes? And are there any changes to the minutes?
None from me either.
Okay, well, that's all good news. Then the minutes from the last meeting are approved as distributed. Let me move past the swearing in for just a moment to see if we can get Victor home out of his car. But I just wanted to mention that we do have the resignation of one commissioner, Sonu Thadney. As you recall, she was granted a leave of absence in October, but has decided now to resign her position from the commission. So we're sorry to see her go. She's been a great contributor, and that means now we just thought we had a full staff. We will now have one opening in the commission, and I'm sure Melissa will talk about that later. The other thing I want to mention is in the packet, we put in an updated structure of the commission, and there are just two changes that I wanted to highlight in that. First one is that Karen Huber-Levy has joined Paul Bocanero as a legislative coordinator. So I think the two of them will make a terrific team, and we'll be hearing from them during the updates, the regular updates. The other change is we've added a police liaison, and Johanna Rasmussen will fill that role. Johanna has good contacts with the police, and we're excited that she'll be working with them to keep them abreast of JJDPC activities and also encourage their participation in our work. So two new changes, which I think are terrific. There's also a listing of the community ambassadors. So I'd encourage all of us as commissioners to take a look as a reminder of what we signed up to do in terms of liaisoning with other commissions. And so please, participate when you can. And if there are things of mutual interest you think other commissioners should be aware of, let's make sure we get that on the agenda, or you send an email out filling people in. Okay. With that, I think we will go to the swearing in. We'll start, we'll see if Victor can do this from his car, but let's start JJDPC with Roxana and Karen. You're on mute.
Right, thank you. So do you want me to so Victor is not with us, is that correct?
No, I'm here, but I'm just in my car.
Okay, that's okay. So Victor and Roxana and Karen, I'd like you to all raise your right hand, please. And then I'd like you to state your name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the oath. And if you agree at the end of what I read, I want you to each say, I do. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so Victor, Roxana, and Karen, please raise your right hand each and state your name.
Karen Huber-Levy.
Roxana Enriquez.
Victor Lecha III.
Okay, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties I'm about to enter. If you agree, each of you please say, I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign this and date it, and then I'll send it to Adriana so that each of you can then get the original and sign it, because we're doing this over Zoom. So congratulations to Victor, to Roxana, and Karen. I'm so happy for you all. Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're thrilled to have each of you. You each bring unique experiences and contributions, and it's a pleasure to welcome you as full commissioners. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our updates then. And JJDPC, would you like to begin?
Hey, well, I don't have a lot to say other than I know I was looking at the minutes. Most of our youth are appearing remotely. Although I am seeing more lawyers in the courtroom, and I do see some people coming to court, which is nice because I've always said it gets lonely in the courtroom when everybody's appearing on Zoom. But we are checking in with our justice partners in our monthly meeting to see about going forward when this pandemic is behind us, what kinds of appearances people can make by Zoom, because we want to make it easier for families to come to court. So we're looking at those protocols, because I think Zoom is a wonderful thing, or Teams or whatever people are using. We're using Zoom. It's a wonderful way for people to appear in court so that they don't have to come down to court. Families have jobs, mothers and fathers are working, and we don't want kids out of school too much. So we're trying to be friendly about that. Now, we have discussed that when we have our hearings, our contested hearings, of course, we want people to appear in court, but we are looking at our protocols. Also, I think as Judge Jakubowski mentioned last time, CASA is always, court-appointed special advocates are constantly training and coming into court to observe. And I know that we want the commissioners also to come into court and observe. So Judge Jakubowski and I each do a 602, which is the juvenile justice calendar. I do mine on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and Judge Jakubowski does hers on Mondays and Wednesdays. So 4 days a week, we have a juvenile justice calendar going in the mornings and in the afternoons. So I welcome the commissioners to come to court in person if you feel comfortable doing so that you can observe the proceedings. So you're more than welcome. So for educational purposes and your commission members, I want you to see what we do every day. I want you to understand the nuts and bolts that we do every day on our pretrial calendars, our dispositions, our arraignments, and even our trials. You're more than welcome to come. So I invite you all to come. So that's pretty much, there are some changes coming to juvenile, and I'm going to just defer that for now with the Division of Juvenile Justice closing, as you know, or not accepting any more youth effective, I think June 30th of 2021. So we recently, just yesterday, got a memo from the court as to how we're going to be dealing with issues as we go forward. But more to come on the Division of Juvenile Justice, more to come on the new laws that have been passed by the governor. But right now we're sort of in the process of addressing all of that. Probation may want to talk about that, but I'm well aware of the issues, and that is worthy of much discussion going forward, I think.
Any questions?
Judge Etadati, I think you said that your when you were talking that your 602s are, you said Tuesday, Wednesday, but I think you meant Tuesday, Thursday. Is that right?
If I misspoke, that's right. Mine are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Judge Jakubowski is Mondays and Wednesdays.
Right.
And then we flip. Then I do dependency on Mondays and Wednesdays, and she does dependency on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Because we, as judges in San Mateo County, we do both. Some counties, judges exclusively do 602s or juvenile justice, and exclusively do 300s or dependency cases. We do both in our county here in San Mateo County.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come to court too. I think it's a really valuable experience for commissioners.
I invite you to come see what we do each and every day, So I look forward to seeing you in court.
Okay, Ron Reyes, would you like to bring us up to date?
Sure. Like the judge said, I don't have too much to add to what the judge had indicated. We are anticipating quite a bit of changes with the passage of SB 92 and the closure of DJJ. So that's going to be more to come on that. It's kind of nice also, like the judge indicated, to see the attorneys also coming by our office. So that's kind of nice. You can feel the, things are somewhat beginning to slowly get back to normal. So that's kind of been a nice thing for us. Also, the working on a couple bills. They're right now on the Senate, on the Assembly floor. Assembly Bill 624, which would create a right of appeal if there's a transfer decision, if there's a transfer order to from juvenile court to adult court. And then the second bill I'm working on is SB 1127, which would prohibit using juvenile strikes as sentencing enhancements in adult court, and that bill is also right now on S74. So hopefully by the next month meeting, I'll have more good news on they hopefully get off the floor and make it to the Senate. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ron, when you say you're working on them, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm part of the organization called Pacific Juvenile Defender Center. It's an organization that is a nonprofit organization that supports and work on policy for juvenile justice throughout the state of California. We support about 600 juvenile defenders throughout the state. I'm on the advisory board, and part of my work is I'm actively lobbying to pass those two bills.
Fantastic. Good to know.
Great. Okay, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Let's see, do we have anyone from the district attorney's office? I did not see Sharon or anybody else.
We received it. I believe Sharon's on listening, but she's not in a position to be able to give an update. She said she didn't have one.
Okay. Okay, great. Aurora, would you like to report on the BHRS?
Hello, everyone. So BHRS continues to have a hybrid schedule now. As of last week, we are having staff come on site, see youth in person in the juvenile hall. And then for community clients, for those that are comfortable having a face-to-face, they're more than welcome to. However, we're finding that telephone or video continues to be preferred by the families that drive up to the juvenile hall, or the lack of privacy maybe in the homes, you know, is a challenge for them. So we continue to provide those services and just be flexible with the clients and try to meet them with what they're comfortable with and what their needs are. But other than that, no other major updates overall for the BHRS department.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Let's see, is Janae Luttrell on the call? I didn't see her, okay. But I know probation is. I see Melanie and Jehan, so would you like to give us your updates?
Sure, I'll go first. Business as usual, we continue to see our youth and families, both in the field and here at the office. I can give you the numbers that I report out on every month. We currently have 189 youth who are on court-ordered informal probation and formal probation. 85 youth that are being processed through our assessment center investigations unit. So our numbers continue to go down overall. We have 17 youth that are on EMP. 1 youth who is in placement. So all of the other youth have either been terminated and returned home, or they've become non-minor dependents. And so we have 9 non-minor dependents. Those are our AB12 youth, extended foster care youth. 5 youth in DJJ. And we have, of the 85 youth that are being processed through the assessment center investigations unit, 6 of those youth are on informal contracts. So those are predisposition informal contracts. And we currently have 21 DPOs. So we had, since our last meeting, another retirement. Any questions?
It seems like the number on electronic monitoring is higher than it has been. Is there any particular reason for that, or am I mistaken?
No, you're right. We're still really just trying to keep kids out of the hall. So if we do have a booking and we determine that the youth can be released, that there isn't a significant safety risk to the community, then the probation officers continue to ask for EMP.
Good.
Thank you.
Melanie, is Jehan going to give the numbers of kids in the hall in detention?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Then I don't have a question.
Okay. So for institution side, we have 12 youth in the hall, 11 males, 1 female, and 6 youth at our girls' camp. There hasn't been really too many changes. We are working closely with correctional health towards coming up with protocols and a reopening plan once, we anticipate everything opening back up in June. And then also with the new, which Judge Adizadi spoke to with, SB 832 and 92, trying to come up with a plan, try to plan ahead for that and the possibility of getting those particular youth and housing youth that might be here longer. Do you have anything specific, Monroe, or were you just wondering our count?
Oh no, I was wondering the count. That was after Melanie had given the count of the other youth.
Okay.
Jehan, I have a quick question. For the number you mentioned for girls, does that include girls, the residents, plus those that are coming in for the Girls Empowerment Program?
No. So for Girls Empowerment Program, I believe there's 4, but I'm not totally sure. I believe there's 4 right now. There are a few that come the end of this school year, which is right around the corner, that will be graduating.
Great.
From school and also from the program.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a quick question. How you doing today? I hope you're doing well. My question is, where would I find the culture and ethnicity of each youth under probation's placement, or just anywhere connected to the probation department, including like the YSC youth?
So Melanie, you might know more. I know that there's certain information. If you go onto the probation website, it typically has those demographics on there. If not, then you can, after the meeting offline, reach out to myself or Melanie. Unless Melanie, you might have an answer.
And there's a local action plan that's online. Yeah. I'll go and grab it and see if I can post it in the chat. And it has a lot of really helpful information about the demographics of the youth that we serve and just goals that we have for our work in the community and with our partners.
And
thank you so much.
Will you be inviting us to the graduation?
Sure. I think we're not doing it on a large scale like we normally do. But once I get the logistics, I will definitely reach out to you.
Great.
We would love to be invited.
Okay.
Ms. Clark, I do have a question about you referred to June. I think you're talking about June 15th when the governor's order might change. So are you all expecting at that time maybe to stop using quarantine when new youth come in? Or, I mean, can you tell us yet a little bit about how you might change procedures?
Yeah, so there is a possibility about how we relook at how we're doing our quarantine unit and how we're doing our intakes. I don't anticipate right now a huge change, but we might have some changes to, our levels as we kind of move on further into the summer.
Okay, great, thanks.
And I believe Melanie posted the action plan in the chat.
Yes, I see that. Thank you. I have one other question. Are we going to discuss the 5 youth in San Mateo? I believe you said their DJJ is scheduled to be closed on June 30th. Was that going to be discussed?
So Paul, DJJ isn't actually closing on June 30th. Right. It's just that we will no longer be making recommendations for DJJ.
Right.
There's some additional information out there that we're looking into, but we'll no longer be recommending DJJ as of June 30th.
Okay.
It's still going to remain open, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, until 2023. I don't know a lot about that. So you would have to.
Right. Right. And so let me clarify, I misspoke. How will we be moving forward in dealing with youth that may require DJJ? Is there a specific placement for them? An idea? Are we going to put them at first base for the prison pipeline at the county jail? Or is there going to be other room made for these youth?
So that's kind of what I first started with. We are looking at a program or something that we can have for our secure track youth. And I think there's still more talks, you know, whether it be judicially, but also statewide on certain language in court orders and probation orders for that population. So they would be with the whole passage of SB 823 and then the trailer bill that was just signed last week. We're looking to adjusting, you know, kind of how we do business here. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anything else for probation? Okay. Well, today we are having John Fong join us from Children and Family Services for the first time to give an update. John has been attending our meetings, but not been giving updates. So we welcome you, John.
Certainly, thanks, Tony. Hi, everyone. Tony said this is my first report out, so if there are items that's specifically that you want to hear from me, please let me know, and I'll do my best. Either my staff and myself will do our best to report out to this group ongoing. Since it is my first report out, I'll give a little bit more regarding our last year. We have continued to be fully operational as a child welfare agency since the beginning of the pandemic. We have had some flexibilities provided by the state, but as to the method by which our services are provided, but by and large, by now we've returned to business as usual as a child welfare agency. That includes in-person child abuse investigations and our ongoing casework. That said, we've learned a lot over the past 14 months. To include, we have a different level of engagement with our youth and our families when we create more creative or accessible methods for contact. So the virtual format has worked in some sense for some of our supportive services and clinical services that we provide to our youth. Early on last year, we're talking March 16th to be specific, we saw a very steep decline in calls to our hotline. That lasted up through end of May until it started leveling out. On average, over the past 14 months, we've seen about a 30% decline to calls to our child abuse hotline here in San Mateo County. The decline across the board is pretty consistent nationwide, is what child welfare agencies have seen during the pandemic. That said, as the community reopens, we do anticipate that our numbers will increase. From February to March, we saw about a 23% increase in our calls to our hotline, and then that leveled out and stayed steady into April. So we anticipate that if and when schools are back in session full-time come the fall, that our numbers will get back to where we would customarily see them pre-pandemic. But we're going to be monitoring that pretty closely as we look through it.
Excuse me, could you tell us why that's happening? I'm not quite sure I understand what the
so by and large, our reporting to our child abuse hotline is reliant on the reports, eyes and ears of our mandated reporters out in the community. So as our young people have been in their homes and services, school included, to be conducted virtually, just had less opportunity for our mandated reporters to seek out any concerns that they might have, as well as report accordingly to our hotline. So that's the primary reason. But across the board, just we haven't had young people, children out in the community. We haven't had eyes and ears on them to the same extent that we had prior to COVID-19.
Thank you.
Some of the caseworkers at the Child Abuse Prevention Council have said that in the course of visiting families via Zoom or online otherwise, they've observed child abuse and domestic violence. So, I mean, that was kind of concerning.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that it hasn't removed the incidents of child abuse or neglect out there in the community. And certainly if and when those situations come to our attention, hopefully they're being reported to our hotline accordingly so we can respond accordingly. Our overall caseload has declined as well over the past year. We're at about 307 children and youth under our jurisdiction currently. That includes our voluntary cases as well. Also includes under state guidance that was released, that's all County Letter 2151. That has allowed local jurisdictions to continue to support young people over the age of 21. So our former non-minor dependents, we have 26, 21, or 22-year-olds who we continue to monitor, provide case management to, and provide that non-minor dependent stipend to on a monthly basis through that supported transitional work. So that has been kind of a development over the past year as well. My report out's primarily related to the dependency side, but we do share a small percentage of our caseload under 241.1 under dual jurisdiction. As of last week, I believe our number was at 15 youth who are currently under 241.1. And some good news, we have 18, last year we saw quite a dip in our graduation rate for our graduating seniors of youth in care. Lost quite a few due to the pandemic. We slipped through the cracks this year. We have 18 graduating seniors, so that is something that we feel good about with some pretty exhaustive resources that we've been trying to provide to our young people who are coming of age and graduating high school. So I'm open to any questions that you might have.
John, I have a question. Hi, this is Monroe Lebuis, Commissioner. The 241.1 that you refer to where it's dual responsibility, if a child is under the care of your organization, then a social worker, I'm assuming, is assigned. And in those 241.1, then a social worker and a probation officer work together on the case. Is that how it works?
That's correct. And we do have a protocol established whereby we determine who will be lead agency over that case, be it probation, if more appropriate, or child welfare. Or both the probation officer and the social worker would be assigned to the case.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Good to have you. We look forward to your reports in the future.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, let's move on to our inspection.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It looks like Janae has joined us.
Oh, very good. Janae, welcome.
Hi there. I apologize for being late.
Would you like to give us an update for the month?
Sure. I actually made it here for Superintendent Clark's report. So I think she covered a lot of the school program at Hillcrest. So I just want to share with you as a reminder, we are looking to reshape Gateway, and we are deep in the process of making that happen. And we're really excited about the new way that we're going to structure the referrals coming in. We are bringing on a partner that has extensive experience in working with students that have not been successful necessarily in comprehensive settings. And so they're going to be coming in and working with our staff, deepening the training and trauma-informed practices, and really how to better support students as they develop new skills and learn here and now, but also getting them transitioned back to their home district. So we're excited that the districts are interested in leaning in and staying connected to their youth. And anecdotally, we are seeing already the schools that have returned to in-person, just an extreme amount of students that are in need of social, emotional, and mental health supports. And our schools are pretty overwhelmed, and we're not back fully 100% yet. So we're ramping up and supporting our schools, and we have great partners like Child and Family Services, BHRS, and other organizations like Star Vista and others, but we still don't have enough services to meet the needs of our schools. So many of you may have heard about new funds that are coming from the state, from Governor Newsom, to support trauma-informed in schools, mental health, some funding coming from the federal government. That's all very, very exciting, but we still have a staffing shortage in San Mateo County. So that's still just a fundamental gap that, and it's not just us, but I think it's compounded with our cost of living, et cetera. So that's an ongoing need that I know all of you are aware of, and I look forward to keeping you updated. There are some work groups trying to come together and find some creative solutions, but getting students back in the classroom in a setting that helps, addressing what we're calling unfinished learning, learning that didn't take place this year, and their social emotional needs. Our schools are going to be more challenged than ever, but we're grateful to have partners such as you all, and I'll keep you all posted.
Thanks. Can you tell us any more about when you said there are not enough services to meet the needs? Can you give us a little more detail about the types of services that are where the gaps are?
Primarily licensed mental health professionals, and especially those licensed mental health professionals that also are bilingual or have the ability to serve special populations, LGBTQ, et cetera. So I know some of our partners have had postings open for months and can't even get applicants. So sometimes it's not just the money. Oftentimes it is the money, but there's also other variables, and staffing is a big one.
Any other questions for Janae?
And Janae, does the potential new funding from the state, does it help address the shortage potentially by, making funds available to raise salaries or to provide other, subsidies like for housing or whatnot? Like, is there anything like that in the works in the potential new funding coming from the state?
Not necessarily from the state. Some districts are able to do some one-off bonuses or, but this is one-time funding. So that's also a really big problem, right? It's great to get this funding, but it's hard to build services that won't have long shelf life, or
Right.
we could turn around in 18 months and be out of money and have brought on staff, right? So there's lots of implications. And then we also have our labor groups to be partnering with and working together. And so sometimes a district might get funds and have the eagerness to bring a staff person on board, but they don't have a job description. So then they have to start negotiating with their labor unions to start getting a job description. So some of these processes just add time and turnaround. And then for us, the golden time in schools to hire is really May, June, because the fiscal year starts July. So pretty much the talent flips around that time of year. And so it just gets harder and harder the closer we get to the new school year.
Got it. Thanks.
I have a question. This is Roxana. So what are you guys are doing for your students during the summer? And also, do the youth have transportation going on? I'm pretty sure most likely they do. So just wanted to
We actually had a chance to hear from most of the 23 districts in a meeting last week, and the majority of them do have some summer school offerings. And it ranges from, some districts reporting that they had lots of parent pressure to have a very comprehensive summer school program. And now the reality of summer's here and the world's opening up again. And so some of those very same families are saying, we need to go on vacation. So some districts have overstaffed and they don't have enough students that actually have signed up. And then in other cases, we have districts who have a lot of need and but they have a really burned out staff, right? These are folks that have been working so hard for so long and revamping their craft and being online. So some districts have a great need, but haven't been able to get their workforce to sign up and be able to offer as many classes as they needed. You know, San Mateo Union, for instance, they asked the teachers what type of kind of extracurricular offerings would you like to teach? And maybe the students won't get credit, but it gets the students back in the school settings, and it's you know, taps into student interest also. So really, out of the 23 districts, it's been great to see that they've engaged their stakeholders, their community, and everybody is offering something. It just ranges. There's a variety.
Got it. Thank you. What about transportation?
Districts, for the most part, are offering transportation, and is of course students that are students with disabilities and are on IEPs, they will have transportation provided. But again, each district has their own. In general, what I heard is that students that are in need of transportation, there's some mechanism in each district.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I do have a question. And I'm not sure if you can answer, but I just wanted to ask it. Just wondering, because you did bring up IEPs, do y'all provide or have access to testing for learning disabilities for the students?
School districts do. So each school district that a student attends, they have those services, the testing and the school psychology services available to students who qualify for testing.
And how do they access that? Are they knowledgeable about access to it, or is it referred by behavioral staff? Or do y'all offer it?
When you say do they have access, do you mean the students or their family?
Yes. Yeah, like a student. So like, because I know many students may not even realize if they do, but I'm just wondering if there is a process or a way in which it's offered to the students to know that it's an option, and their families to get tested for learning disabilities. Because I know many times it starts with behavior. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. And then it goes through the process, through the IEP process. But I'm just wondering if there's access to information about testing, that it's available, and the benefits of it.
For the most part, yes. There's a thing in schools called Child Find. And so schools have an obligation, if they notice that a student has been struggling in learning and attending regularly, and, you know, and the teachers start to have concerns that the students might have a disability, then the schools have an obligation to do what's called Child Find and refer that student for testing. Typically, there's other meetings that happen prior to jumping to testing, because we sure don't want to overqualify students either and overtest, and there's negative implications for that. So there are structures and there's processes, and then, but yes, a parent or a family can also request in writing for their student to be tested and submit that to their school site.
So it's only based upon the teacher's evaluation that they become knowledgeable about it?
Not solely, but oftentimes the teacher would have some of the best indication about whether a student is struggling in learning. But sometimes, to your point about mental health or behavioral needs, sometimes it is other folks on the campus that might have concerns about a student and might generate that conversation, or initiate that conversation rather.
Okay, cool, Rana. And then last question. Do they have to pay for it?
No, totally
okay,
free.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Janae. Appreciate the update.
Before we go on, Tony, there was a question in the chat. It is, as far as school referrals for the new models at Gateway, what will be the connection between district referrals to the school and their expulsion process, if any?
So historically, Gateway did only take students that were expelled. As the County Office of Education, we have a legal mandate to support all expelled students in the county. So we work with the districts, and the districts let us know that they needed that service. But the other part of the County Office of Ed is we're trying to help districts better serve all students, right? So we're constantly trying to put ourselves out of business, as I say here a lot. But so part of what we've seen is that many schools would benefit and families would benefit from some earlier supports and services. School refusal, lots of students that are presenting with some anxiety and depression, and maybe they don't have the services that are able to help them be successful in their educational environment. So we will still have some mechanisms to serve students that are officially expelled, but our hope is to help districts better identify students that are demonstrating some warning signs that they might be headed down that path and better intervene earlier and help them kind of develop a different trajectory. So there will still be services for both, but the connection is going to start to be broader than we have in the past.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item on our agenda then, and that's the inspection update. And Rebecca, would you like to start us out here?
Sure. So all commissioners have signed up. Thank you everyone for signing up. Really appreciate it. I just want to list the commissioners that have signed up and for each inspection. So for YSC, we have lead Johanna. Thank you so much for being the lead. I know it's a big role. And then we have Safik, Paul, and myself will be on that team. For Camp, we have Deborah as the lead. Thank you, Deborah, for being the lead. And then we have Tony and Rosanna, who will be helping Deborah with that inspection. For the school sites, we have Melissa as the lead. Thank you, Melissa, for volunteering to be the lead. We have Corinne, we have Safik, Victor, and Austin, who will be assisting with that. I know some of you signed up for more than one, but we really had to spread it out. So we had to make some decisions. So I hope you're okay with this. And then Canyon Oaks, we have Monroe as a lead. Thank you, Monroe, for volunteering for that. And we have Doug and Susan, who will be helping Monroe with that. And for the new commissioners who have not inspected a facility before, again, we are providing training. So if you need training, if you can just raise your hand at this time. So that way, Deborah, okay, Karen, I see you. Anyone else who wants training? I can't really see anyone raising their hand, but you can speak up too. Just unmute yourself and say that you'd like training. So that
the training isn't something we want to.
Yeah.
So I was going to say the training isn't something we want to do as an entire commission and sort of as a refresher.
If you feel like you need a refresher, I would recommend that you take the training that Deborah is going to offer. But if you don't want the refresher, then you don't need to attend. But you're welcome to, Doug. I don't think it's something that we're going to do as an entire commission at this time. Although that is a good idea, but that wasn't discussed for now. So if you're interested, Deborah is going to conduct that training and she will reach out to those who have requested that training.
I think all the new commissioners who've not done an inspection before should probably go to the training.
Right. So
I will find a time that works best for the new commissioners, and then I will circulate that time to everyone. So anybody else who wants to join along, and especially because we got new forms last year, that was the first time we'd use those new forms. The more the merrier. Happy to have people join that training.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate it. And then, so I will distribute the materials to the leads. So materials and resources to the leads after this meeting before the end of the week. We may do some updates on the forms. So that's what we're working on now. And so we'll send it to you by the end of this week. Timeline, we're hoping to start the inspections sometime after June 15th. We will encourage you to reach out to all of the leads for the department heads of each facility, and we'll give you all that information as well. And then lastly, I just want to remind us of the purpose of the inspections. And so we have inspection guidelines here that I just wanted to read with you all and review. So the purpose of our inspections are to inspect at least annually all publicly administered institutions within the county used for confinement of youth. Also to inspect if delegated by juvenile court, to inspect any jail or lockup within the county, which in the preceding calendar year was used for confinement of any youth for more than 4 hours, which this year we do not need to do. We don't need to inspect any police stations. We just found that out today. To report the results of such inspections together with recommendations in writing to the juvenile court judge, the chief probation officer, and the correction standards authority. And to inspect at the commissioner's discretion any group home privately owned and regulated by the Department of Social Services and the county serving wards or dependent children of the juvenile court. So those are the purposes, the main purposes of our inspections. Again, I will send you this material so that you have it, so you could read through it, especially for our new commissioners. I'll make sure to send all that information. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, thank you everybody for signing up. And I look forward to working with you all on the inspections. And please let me know if you have any questions at any point. Just feel free to email me. And again, Deborah will reach out to you regarding the training.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Also related to inspection, Melissa, you're with us now? Let's see.
Yes, I am. Hi.
Okay, very good.
Yes,
Melissa
here I am.
is
Okay.
going to talk about a couple topics. One is just a reminder of the confidentiality requirements we need to keep in mind during our inspections, and then also talk a little bit about recommendations to get some replies. So you're on, Melissa.
Yes, thank you so much. So I sent an email, but this is just a reminder of our confidentiality requirements. And this is parts of the law that I cobbled together a little bit. In conducting its review into the administration of the juvenile court law in the county, the commission shall respect the confidentiality of minors' records and other information protected under the provision of law. It may review court or case records or case files of a child, provided it keeps the identities of the minors named in those records confidential. And I know we've always done a good job following it, but it's a good reminder that I will probably be reading every year. The other thing is, and this is a suggestion, so Santa Clara County, which I've been liaisoning with, requests that the stakeholders reply to recommendations that have been written up as part of the inspections. And I CC'd that, or I copied it into the chat, if you see a chat from me. And so what they just do is, our inspection report says, you know, the toilet on F2 needs to be repaired. And then 30 days later or 90 days later, they write, you know, this was taken care of, this is taken care of, this is the status on this, etc. So I wanted to float that idea by you, and also craft language that feels appropriate in tone, if that sounds welcome. The reason I advocate for it is it allows for a dialogue instead of us just putting out information and then not asking to continue that conversation and accountability with, you know, in the inspections. Thoughts?
Commissioners, any?
I think that's a great idea, Melissa. You know, following up on work orders is extremely important, because that's one of the constitutional rights of these youth, especially the 8th Amendment, can easily be violated if they do not provide a healthy and safe environment for them to receive their treatment. And so I think that's a great idea.
I use toilets, but actually, you know, that's not based in anything, and it could be other things like vocational programming or food portions or whatever. Yeah.
So my only thoughts on that are that found it over the last few years pretty rare that there's any sort of acute issues that need to be handled.
Right.
And those are the sorts of things that can be handled within 30 days or whatever. But when it comes to, painting a wall or, painting the entire exterior of a building, or these things typically aren't going to be able to be handled within 30 days. And I know that we usually make it a practice to review the previous year's reports of whatever you're inspecting that year to make sure that any recommendations have been followed up with. So it's sort of, I don't know, I guess that's two ends of the spectrum, 30 days and 1 year. So I don't know if we need to maybe break it down into to realistic. I mean, we don't want to be following up on everything that we noticed in 30 days. I think we need to be somewhat realistic about it.
Yeah, I think, it's important to just close the conversation. And so I agree, there's some things that obviously probably would get fixed in that moment, right? Oh, a toilet's clogged. Okay, we can fix that. So what does 90 days sound like to the group, or 45 days? And it doesn't have to be that the problem is fully solved. For example, a policy manual may not have been finished, but maybe we find out that it's 80% done and we get to see a draft or something like that,
Melissa,
No, I agree. I think we could be flexible with it, in that be reasonable to what they need to accomplish to get started or to finish a goal, and give them an appropriate amount of time to follow up on it. That's all.
I think the goal is just to start a dialogue, and the deliverable is what's the plan of action, right? So if it's easy to fix, fix it. If it's not easy to fix, how do you plan on addressing, and what's the time frame for that? And then if there are additional follow-ups needed, that would happen. But really, it's just meant to close the loop, as Melissa said, but also to start a dialogue about, what's happening and what needs to be done, or how are we going to get there, right? Rather than just putting on paper and walking away from it.
No, I agree. I think it highlights things that need to be dealt with, as opposed to just being part of the entire report.
Mm-hmm. So is there language that somebody can suggest that would be put on the inspection documents? Just, we request the favor of a reply to any recommendations in the next 30 days or 45 days?
Well, Melissa, can we ask commissioners to respond to you by email?
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know whether we needed to come up with a whole thing, or whether we had to approve it as a group, or what the process was.
It sounds like people feel like it's a good and a reasonable, expectation. So.
Great, thank you.
Let's do the drafting offline and then bring it back to the next meeting for approval.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Melissa. Okay, moving on from the inspections then. Johanna, do you have a social media update for us today?
So I actually have a very small update. We were scheduled to meet with Krista last week, and unfortunately my 16-year-old went into the hospital completely unexpected, and she was there through the weekend. So we are going to meet this week. We're going to actually meet on Thursday. And so I hope that once we get everything set up on Thursday, that we should be up and have our accounts going by our next meeting. And we should have our first initial meeting with the subcommittee. So that's what I have to report to you this afternoon.
Okay, we look forward to hearing about their creation. Susan, let me turn it over to you. Susan wanted to give a little bit of a background and update on the changes in the legislation about group homes and short-term residential treatment programs. Susan.
So how many people feel like they know all about STRTP, short-term residential treatment programs, and what changes that's made to how we are taking care of youth that have severe mental problems? Everybody feel like they know all about it?
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't
Well,
know all about it, but I'm pretty well versed in it, but
okay.
I could always use more.
Yeah, you would be. Anyway, it started back in 2014 when the Department of Social Services produced the California Child Welfare Continuum of Care Reform. And the basis of that was children in out-of-home placements should live in the least restrictive family setting, promoting normal childhood experiences. And it was developed with feedback from everybody except the JJCs and the JJDPCs in California, because when it came out, none of the other JJCs or JJDPCs had known anything about it happening. And we ended up having a meeting of 20 of us up in Sonoma, and there was some real concern about it. It was passed into law by AB 403 in 2015 and signed into law in October of 2015. And basically what that meant was all group homes had to close or transform themselves into short-term residential treatment programs by January 1, 2018. And that same year, there were several exposés that were written, and I can give you this, the URLs to them, by Joaquin Sapien in ProPublica. He did an expose called Level 14 about a group home named Families First in Davis, which had 72 beds. And then on April 15th, he did one on Bayfront, which is in Long Beach and Casa Pacifica. Bayfront had 40 beds and Casa Pacifica had 28 beds. And Bayfront, I think all of those have closed now. But in order to transform from a group home into an STRTP, they had to apply. And I saw Canyon Oaks application. It was about 3.5 inches thick. And it required that they have a psychologist or psychiatrist on staff. It had all kinds of requirements that a small group home could not possibly manage. So some of the group homes tried to get together so that they could get someone who would handle, 3 or 4 group homes that were closely related. The result has been in San Mateo County that all our group homes, except Canyon Oaks, have closed. Canyon Oaks has 12 capacity. So it doesn't even begin to be like the Families First or the Bayfront or the Casa Pacifica. Those to me were not really group homes. They were almost orphanages because of the size, and they couldn't possibly have a family atmosphere. Our group homes, like Your House South, were in regular residential homes, and the children were no more than 2 to a bedroom, and they could decorate the bedroom. They had a kitchen where they could help make the meals. They had communal dining room, and it was more family-like than than some of these others. And one of the problems I had with it at the time was there was no definition in this 256-page report of what was a group home. So I think this has been fraught from the beginning. I think no one would deny that it's better for a child to be if they can't be with family, it's better for them to be in a foster family home than to be in a group home or certainly a large scale housing or group housing situation. The problem has always been, and continues to be, there are not enough foster homes available. And they're more available for infants and young children. When you get to the preteens and the teenagers, they have a lot of ACEs, that they're very traumatized youth in many cases. And when you put them with a foster family, that foster family finds they're not equipped to deal with the trauma that this child has encountered. And they give the child back, and the child gets another placement and another placement and another placement. I've heard of children having as many as 12 placements. And to me, they would be better off in a small group home where they had some stability than being handed off from person to person to person. And I think you've probably seen the exposés where they get to go from placement to placement with all their stuff in a black garbage bag, which really makes them feel special. So there are some major problems with this whole STRTP situation. As of December in 2018, with 1 year under their belt. There were 1,654 licensed STRTPs with a bed capacity of 2,700, compared with 340 group homes with about 2,800 bed capacity. So there's not even enough bed capacity, and the child can only stay there for 6 months unless you put in another request, and they can stay up to 12 months. And it's exactly the same for every child. It doesn't take into consideration the level of trauma that that child has endured and the level of treatment that that child needs in order to get to a point where they are able to live a normal and healthy life. So we've got some problems. CCR, this continuum of care, was supposed to pay for itself in less than 5 years, and instead, in 2019, the spending on CCR was 296 million, up from a projected 194 million, or 101 million over budget. So it's not it's not doing the job it was meant to do. And I think, I don't know what we do about it, but I think we need to get more involved with this whole process, because this is not good for our children. Canyon Oaks is our only STRTP in the county. So if they can't take the child, then we have to send them out of county and in many cases out of state. And that's totally against the whole idea of keeping children close to their families so that hopefully at some point they can be reunited. So
Susan?
Yeah.
The purpose of this was to introduce everybody to the current state, and you've done a fabulous job, but we're going to have to move on to the agenda.
Okay.
So, you've introduced the topic. Is there something you would like us to think about or do for the next session to dig into any deeper? Or
if anybody's interested in more information, I can give you more information about it.
Great. Well, thank you for doing that. It's a huge issue, and it's something we haven't talked about in a very long time. So I appreciate that. And everybody get in touch with Susan.
People have questions.
Okay.
So if I might go first, my daughter was actually placed in a facility. She was at the Fred Finch Youth Center, and she actually got very sick while she was there. So I really appreciate you bringing this issue up, Susan. I think there's a lot of things here that require our attention, and I just wanted to express my appreciation to you for bringing it forward.
Thanks.
Fred Finch was one of the places mentioned in the expose.
Right. Well, Susan, we aren't going to be able to discuss it further now, but
you don't want me to answer. There are two other questions. There are two other
if it's really, really quick, and then we'll have the follow-up at another meeting when we can allow the appropriate time on the agenda. This was just a 5-minute, quick update.
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have a Victor? I see your hand up, just real quick.
Yeah, I just really quickly, I'm very familiar with this issue, very close with this issue. I worked with it. I understand your point of view, Susan, but I just want to give a different viewpoint in this space, and that I worked really closely with group homes, and they were not providing the type of trauma-informed care that these youth needed, and consistently had to go from group home to group home to group home. I did a lot of group home work. I've worked in group homes as well myself. And the reason why continuum of care was created was because there's been lots of studies done in regards to kids being re-traumatized via placement breakdowns, is what it's called, when a youth has to be moved into another placement. So I have really I've done a lot of research on this topic, and I do feel like there's some work that can be done to fix the continuum of care, but it came from a really good place to show that the group home model really was not addressing the needs of these youth who had been severely traumatized. And the numbers bear it out in regards to, the system, raising kids does not do a good job in regards to outcomes, which is why AB 12 was created in the first place for extended foster care.
Victor,
but-
can I ask you to get in touch with Susan and maybe
Sure.
two of you prepare?
I
something?
just want to say really quick, and every group home kid I ever talked to always told me they would rather be in a foster home over a group home
Well,
any
sure.
day of the week. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, I think it's an important topic. There's lots of interest, so I'm going to ask the two of you if you would kind of put together something we can put on an agenda and have a better or more thorough discussion. So I'm going to have to leave it at that and move on. But thank you both, and thank you for your comments, Johanna, as well. So let's turn to our projects, and let's do some quick updates of those. We'll start with communicating with elected officials.
Yes, am I off mute? I am off mute. We have continued to have meetings with elected officials around the county in the last month. I think in my last update at our last meeting, I said that we had a meeting upcoming with the mayor of Belmont, who is also running for supervisor to replace Carol Groom, who has to retire in 2022. And so we did have that meeting with Charles Stone at the beginning of May, which went very well. And then in addition to that, I had a meeting. Paul was unable to join, with Giselle Hale, council member in Redwood City. So in the last month, we met with two new elected officials to tell them about our work, and then have a few more that I'm playing email tag with, working on setting up meetings. So the work of getting the word out with elected officials about what we're doing is continuing. That's my update.
Okay, that's good. That's great. You want to move on to the where we are in our resolution?
Yeah, at our last meeting, we voted to approve sending a letter and draft resolution to the Board of Supervisors. That happened later in that same week, and since then, Paul and I have had follow-up meetings with some supervisors. I am sensitive to the Brown Act, which I was told means that I can't get into too much detail about how many supervisors and who's got a position on what and where. That's basically something you can't do kind of outside of a Board of Supervisors meeting. But I think my top line message on this is that I do think that I'm optimistic that we're going to get enough support to move a resolution forward, and the meetings are going well, and there may be some revisions to the draft resolution, but the spirit of what we're trying to do, I think we're going to be able to preserve and move forward with it. But more to come on that, and the timeline for that is probably something more like sometime in July, getting to a Board of Supervisors meeting, because there's some work to be done in the meantime, kind of getting enough supervisors on board with a revised and edited resolution.
I have a question. How does a resolution or ordinance get revised? Like who is touching it, since you were the original author?
Yeah, so I guess the long and short, Melissa, and this is my first time doing this, so I'm no expert, but I think this is what you would call the sausage making of legislation, right? And essentially what that boils down to is working with legislative aides in the supervisors' offices to come up with revisions that they're comfortable with, and that we can get enough agreement on. That's kind of the long and short. But we're at the start of that, and unless that makes anyone nervous about making changes to the resolution that we put together, again, I'll repeat that I think the spirit of what we're trying to do is going to be preserved, and I'm learning a bit more about the process and about, what goes into a board memo that goes along with a resolution, and how to make a resolution, with a fewer words so that it's a little more clear, and we're getting there. But essentially I'm getting some lessons on how to do this with legislative aids.
Thank you.
Monroe, we've
Yes,
done
Susan.
this once before, and what usually happens is at that meeting, they'll form a subcommittee and they'll set a time to meet. And what we did was we wrote up a draft resolution and sent it to the subcommittee, and they brought us in for a meeting. When we walked in, there were 5 lawyers there, and all they did is they asked us to take out 2 phrases. We said, fine, done, and went back to the board and they passed it.
And the
So
subcommittee, Susan,
it could
was
be really simple.
yeah,
The
that would be
subcommittee-
great. The subcommittee was legislative aides or supervisors
No.
or what?
It was 2 of the supervisors, Dave Pine, Dave Canepa,
Mhm.
and it was Michelle and I from the commission, and 5 lawyers. And when we saw 5 lawyers, we
Right.
thought we're dead in the water, but it was cool.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. No, I actually
so-
talked with Michelle about this before she moved out of the country. I don't know if everyone knows that, but and so I'm aware of that, and we're kind of on our way towards getting 2 supervisors to work with us on revisions. So we're on our way to that.
Good news. Thank you.
I just had a quick question, Monroe. So I may have missed it. So just so I understand, and being mindful of the Brown Act as it relates to the Board of Supervisors, will you be bringing this back to us prior to it going to the Board of Supervisors so we have a look at it?
Johanna, I assume so. But again, like I said, this is my first time doing this, and so I'm learning a bit about the process. But I'm not certain about that. I think it's also possible that once we've kind of sent our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, they kind of take the ball and run with it. But that I also am there to shepherd that. And of course, like we said, we want to make sure that it accomplishes what we intended it to.
Thank you. Appreciate your efforts.
Yeah.
Thanks, Monroe. Sounds good. Susan, the diversion program.
We are having our next meeting on this Friday, May 28th, and I'm thrilled that Deborah has agreed to join us. So I think we'll get this back moving on a reasonable trajectory again.
Good.
That's it for that. As for the truancy project, we had a meeting on May 14th. And it turns out that the County Office of Education has hired a company called Everyday Labs, and they made a presentation to us. And they have a method of being friendly to working with truant students. They send them what they call nudges. And couple of things that they found out were most parents lose track of the child's attendance. They don't know what's normal, and they don't connect absences with school outcomes. So the letters explain what their child is doing compared to the schoolmates and the importance of regular attendance. And they found that that's 40% more effective than the standard letters that SARBs have been writing, and because they're also written at a 4th grade level, and they're very friendly. So we didn't get anything done towards finishing our work projects, but we will continue working on that.
Okay, good. Maybe we'll see it next month. That would be terrific.
Don't, I wouldn't count on it.
Okay. Let's see, the next program is analyzing after school programs. And Amaya, Karen and I have been working hard on this. We've completed the catalog of after school and summer programs. It's a very long list, which is very good news, except it's quite a challenge for us then matching all of the providers and the programs against the specific needs of the students in underserved communities. So we're talking to a lot of people, several people, Janae and others from the County Office of Education, a number of CBOs, some advocacy groups. and others to try and get some greater perspective on this. Right now, we're focusing on the role of the school districts because, as we've heard, many of the schools have programs on site. So we're trying to learn more about how the schools actually fund and select each of the individual programs, and then identifying any differences in access and quality of those programs. So that's where we are on that. On the dashboard project, we're winding down a bit on the collection of data. We're talking to Aurora this week and hoping to get some BHRS statistics to be used in the dashboard. And then we'll have to move on to see what we can get from the police departments on diversion statistics. That'll be a critical piece. We're a little bit disappointed in the lack of detailed information on a monthly and timely basis, but we're working with monthly, quarterly, and annual data, and we'll soon be looking at some options for how to display the data that we have received. So that's the dashboard project. Then, let's see, moving on to our outreach. Or I should ask if there are any questions on either of those projects before moving on.
Yes.
Roxanne, nice to see you.
Yes, this is Roxana. I'm wondering, are you guys looking into also what after school programs are charter schools offering?
Yes.
Okay.
We're looking at all of the, what we're doing is we're looking at 6 different school districts in the areas that were identified as having the greatest need by the Collaboration for Children's Success. So we're looking at all the schools in those 6 districts.
Yeah, and does that include like recent learning hubs?
Yes. One of the, both challenges and opportunities is with the transition from school to pandemic to learning hubs and back to after school programs. So we're trying to look at the evolution of those.
Okay, great, thank you. And also one quick question, have we identified at least 3 after school programs that that are like somewhat of, can be like a model to other after school programs? Just because knowing myself, I am aware of after school programs in, for example, Redwood City and the type of organizations that are providing after school programming, and also know about, the issues that they're also having. So, I'm happy to also help you collaborate on that.
Excellent. We will definitely give you a call. Thank you. And yes, so we are trying to find models both in programs and also in systems, how, the collaboration and coordination that's required to be successful. But we'll give you a call. Thank you. Okay. Outreach, Deborah and Johanna.
This month we focused on what do we do once COVID ends. So we did some research into whether or not we will be able to continue to have Zoom meetings going forward. And the response we received from County Council is that as long as the modifications are still in effect for COVID, we can have virtual meetings and we can have combined meetings. But once Governor Newsom lifts those restrictions to the Brown Act, we will not be able to have video meetings attached to our in-person meetings. We will have to go back to an in-person only format unless there is some permanent change that is made to that. There is some legislation in the works that was trying to make this possible for public meetings, but it was starting to require a lot of really intense things like translations into multiple languages, closed caption. And so the legislation was kind of stripped down, and now what's moving forward, as I understand it, is only applies to like the Board of Supervisors and city councils. And so we wouldn't qualify for that legislation if it moves forward. So as long as we can, we will continue to host Zoom meetings because I think it allows us the broadest audience and allows people to participate without having to commute time. And we're very grateful that we've been able to have so many people here. So one of the things we're also looking into is that if we can't get a broad cross section of people remotely, if the governor lifts the Brown Act recommendations or sorry, having a little brain freeze here. We're going to try and host meetings in underserved areas. So we will try and maybe once a quarter try and host a meeting in, say, East Palo Alto or Daly City or Redwood City, and try and promote it locally using our new marketing arm here and social media to try and actually get lots of local people in the community to attend those meetings. So maybe once a quarter we'll try and do that once we're back to in-person meetings. I guess it all depends on June 15th if things are lifted when everything opens up, or if the governor allows us a little more wiggle room to transition back. So we'll keep you posted.
Is there anything we can do to help in that effort, like lobbying or anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Even if
we past that point.
If we have in-person meetings, because I know like the way like school boards even used to work previously, they'd let people call into meetings. Is there any way we could still do that?
I asked, and the county council responded back mostly with the video. I will double check that it also means dialing in, but it was my understanding that it was any non-in-person was not allowed. But I will double check on the phone.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. Lessons learned during COVID?
I think, well, Johanna, would you like to speak, or Suffolk?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I think we are close to done. We should have a draft for the next meeting. Our final act is to interview students, youth, and we will be talking to them in early June, so next week.
So would you like extra time on the agenda next month to present your report?
Sure. Would we like extra time? Yes, absolutely.
Well, if your report is finished, that is.
Our report should be finished, but we'll talk closer to that time as well.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Great. Austin, how about the peer court?
Peer court's been going well. We just met with the people from the Office of Ed today, and we've been bringing more groups into the program. Does anyone else have anything to add on the peer court team?
There's so much more to say. I think that there's some enthusiasm, and we're in the development of broad support. Janae is going to help us a lot. It sounds like Sequoia Union School District is very interested in sort of talking in more concrete terms, although they're getting a new superintendent. And I think Victor is really working on what the programming model is going to look like, and I'm working on funding.
And we all observed the model in Marin as well.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions on the projects before we move on? All right. Let's go to our commissioner report outs then. The Youth Commission.
Our year is wrapping up soon. And I think we have one of our last meetings next on Thursday.
Yeah, that's our showcase meeting, and I think the whole JJDPC is invited to attend as well. Yeah, that'll just basically be, I think Deborah sent out an email on the showcase with an invite. But yeah, that'll be where we just showcase all of our projects that we did this year.
Excellent.
We'll also have elections, and I'm running for chair of the Youth Commission for next year.
Can we vote?
I wish.
Okay. Thank you. Melissa, back to you on membership.
Sure. Just as you heard from Tony, Sanu's position has been released. And so we will be doing interviews in the next few months on that. I encourage applicants to get their applications in. And if there are any prospective applicants, I will stay after at the end of this meeting to answer questions or to just talk. Oh, and I wanted to just thank, we have a lot of volunteers who are doing work, heavy lifting on commissions. Mateo was mentioned earlier, but I also want to recognize Celia Slavitt is doing a lot of work. And then Angelina and Spencer and Armand, who is on this call for the first time, is already signed up for the project as well. So thank you guys.
It's really wonderful to have volunteers on this. We appreciate it. Okay, Karen and Paul, the legislative update.
Hi, everyone. Yes, Paul and I will be working together and providing you with updates on legislation that is pertinent to our mission. We have put together some parameters and a process to ensure that we're considering legislation that is would be useful for us to track and inform you of, and also that is aligned with our mission and our priorities as a commission. I know that we've been asked to support some bills coming up, and so we will be looking into that and considering the timing and our options to support them. I just also wanted to kind of put it in a little bit of context in that there are a lot of bills that pertain to juvenile justice and to other projects that we're doing as a commission. Currently in our 2021 legislative session, we have 23 assembly bills and 10 Senate bills. We know of some of them, and we will be, as I said, taking a closer look at the bills that Ron Ray's updated us on. And I think it probably would be useful, and we'd love to, I don't know if Ron is still on the call, but if he is, I think Paul and I would love to have the opportunity to meet with you and discuss some of this in your perspective and also your work at the Pacific Juvenile Defender Center. I've actually contacted them and asked if they would consider allowing me to be a member, and they are considering it, but have not said yes yet. So would love your support on that, Ron. Also, I just want to briefly update the commission on the Senate bill that I updated you on last time, the Promise Act, which is improves the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act by ensuring adequate oversight, equitable decision-making, and effective investments. And basically that means that 95% of the funding needs to be invested in programs in the community with community-based organizations and public organizations that are not law enforcement. So it's quite a shift from what's happening right now. And the last time I updated you was April 20. The bill had passed out of the Senate Public Safety Committee. It was referred to appropriations. It was heard in appropriations. And the interesting thing is there's been some concern, we know from some stakeholders, that one of the maybe negative consequences of this bill could be the costs that are not being accounted for. If 95% of these funds flow directly to projects, there's still a lot of costs that probation is bearing in terms of administering and deciding on all these programs. So that has clearly been recognized by appropriations, and what they've done is they have, it's now held in committee and under submission because it was referred to the suspense file. It sounds like a detective story, but that means that they're taking a closer look at this. And they have recognized, when I read through the appropriations discussion, they have recognized that these costs will be significant and need to be dealt with. And it would not be appropriate to ignore those costs and perhaps force county probation offices to not provide these programs. So I think that's a really key point. Hopefully that will be dealt with. Right now, we'll just wait and see because there's no motion to have the bill proceed. So that's just happened though, that's May 20th. And by the next meeting, I'll probably have more information for you on this. Paul, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think I'd just like to follow up with that meeting with Ron Ray, as I'm very, very interested in the work that he's doing on those bills, being that I'm advising Senator Becker on bills that are also being introduced. So I really look forward to that conversation.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, Karen and Paul.
Did you see the letter I sent out from the chief probation officers to the California State Senate?
I did
on
see
that
that.
bill? Okay.
Yes, I did see.
And you do know that is a legislative director at the county that you should probably link up with.
Okay, maybe can you let
I
me?
can't think of her name right now, but I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I have a quick question, Suzanne. Do you know the attorney that represents the JJDPC that we go to for consultation? The name of the attorney? I think Judge Edasati had mentioned it in the last meeting, but maybe you'll know.
You know,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Our liaison is Judith Holliber in the county. Is that what you're referring to?
How do you spell her last name?
I think it's on our letterhead. Actually, it's Holiber.
Thank you so much.
Are you saying that I thought it was a man, because I went to the website for county council and found.
When we have issues about the commission, we go to Judith.
Okay, great.
Okay. Johanna, as our new police liaison, do you have a report?
I have a very brief report since this position just was established in the last month. So what we talked about when Deborah and Tony and I met is that starting this position, what would be best is to send a copy of our strategic plan to all of our law enforcement partners and to send them ongoing invitations to our meeting. And hopefully this will give us a better understanding of what's happening on the street prior to the youth entering our system, and also to allow us a snapshot of just what's going on in our communities. And that would allow us to focus more on our delinquency prevention, the delinquency prevention aspect of our work. And so that's just begun, and I'm really excited about that.
Thanks.
Johanna, when we were working on the strategic plan at the beginning of last year, we did get out and interview some police department officers or heads. So they're actually in the appendix of the strategic plan. There's a list of police officers that we spoke with. But I'd be happy to give you some more color on that as well, because I think I did at least one of the interviews with police departments to put together the strategy.
Thank you, Monroe. That would be great.
Yeah, maybe when we talk about that other thing next week, we can touch on that as well.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, great.
Do we have any reports from any community ambassador? Meetings you've attended or issues the commission should be aware of? Okay.
Oh, yes. I just wanted, I shared this with Monroe because I thought it was very exciting, but the Alameda County JJDPC had the Youth Advocates Program present. And this is a program hired by probation to provide what I would consider truly wraparound service. There is every advocate. Oh shoot, I didn't prepare myself for this. Every youth has an advocate who spends 10 hours a week with the youth or working on the youth's case, and also talks to probation once a week, and is providing family services as well as youth services. So a very intensive model. It is a nationwide and semi-international program, and I found it very inspiring, and encourage us to learn more about this, and referred to Monroe specifically because of the Board of Supervisors efforts.
I just put the link to the organization that's Alameda is hired to provide these services. I just put a link to it in the chat.
Oh, I also have a quick update. If anyone's interested, at the school board meeting tomorrow for the Sequoia Union High School District, they're having a study session on socio-economic or socio-emotional learning and mental health resources that are provided to kids and especially at-risk kids. So I'll put the link in the chat.
Very good. Well, we've raced through this pretty quickly.
Tony, I have an update.
Okay.
The JJCC met this month, and it was just a quick update on AB 823, the DJJ realignment. There's talk about what's already mentioned today, the trailer bill SB 92, which is kind of the mechanism to release funds to the county. We talked about that the plan that probation put forward had been approved by the Board of Supervisors. Going forward, they'll be sent to the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. It's a new office, and they're going to evaluate the plans going forward. And the courts will review. So right now, looks like the hall is going to looking to be able to serve up to 23 youth. And the court will review those youth who would have otherwise been sent to DJJ every 6 months for progress. And the one important thing that came out of that meeting is that the money that probation is getting for the secure track or the youth that otherwise would be sent to DJJ cannot be used on the other populations within the YSC. So for example, if it's great if a program is created that we could transfer over to the other youth, that's great, but we can't kind of split the money. Probation not able to split the money and say, oh, well, we also need to, our other population needs this. The money is designated specifically for those youth. So that was that brief update.
Deborah, I have a question.
Yes.
You said up to 23.
Yes. Up to the age of 23.
Oh, up to the age of 23.
Sorry, not 23 youth that are up to the age of 23.
Okay, that's a helpful
Big difference. Thank you for asking that question.
Yes. Okay, good.
I have an scare you there for a minute?
Indeed you did.
No, I believe, and this is just off the top of my head, that probation could probably answer this better, but I believe it's more around a dozen, room for up to around a dozen-ish. We only have 5 youth in DJJ right now, so I don't think they would ever need a full dozen, but there's my understanding that to build enough of capacity that would be the largest.
And that capacity would be for, say, the 5 that are there now, plus others that would have otherwise been sent in the future? Is that
No, the way it works is that DJJ will keep the youth that they currently have until they close in 2023. I don't know what the sentences are on the youth that are there from San Mateo County. Some of them may be processed out by that time. The counties do have the option to bring youth back, but it's my understanding that we're not in a place to do that until we've actually got programs in place for these youth. Because right now, DJJ does have vocational programs and other programs for older youth, and we just don't have them yet, right? So there's just not a system in place to give them the same level of services that they are currently receiving, and that all needs to kind of be put in place. But the Phoenix program gave us a great start in starting to think about these things. So.
I have a quick question on that. I'm working privately with a client at the DJJ that is probably the reason for SB 823. And one thing I noticed was I'm working on his exit plan right now, his discharge, and I see that the county is really not a part of discharging him and just letting him be done. They're calling it maxing out. What is the follow-up with our youth from San Mateo County that we can do to ensure that they receive the services that they were scheduled to receive at the DJJ? How do we make sure that they did get that treatment that we send them there to receive. So recidivism isn't something that we should be concerned about.
So are you asking about youth that are not coming back to be supervised by probation?
Yes.
They're done with the program. They're done with probation.
Yes.
They're done. I don't know, but that's a really good question. And as those youth will now be here, it's something we should look at.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that was my concern, because when I was listening to this discharge, it was a little scary that counties are not following up to ensure they did receive the treatment that they were sent to receive. And they're just maxed out. They're just released into our community, and there's just really no follow-up once they reach that age where they can no longer be placed on parole or supervision. So that was why I just asked. I just wanted to find out if these youth would be suitable for transitioning, or should we be concerned and reach out to them to ensure that there is follow-up services that we can reach out to them to meet the needs if they were not met at the DJJ. I just wanted to bring that up there just to find out if there's a plan for us to really like follow up with these kids before they are released into our community.
I have an update on the big lift. Their Inspiring Summers is going to start soon, and it serves children from kindergarten or pre-kindergarten through 3rd grade. It's going to be in person, and it was in person last summer as well, and they had no problems. 7 districts, 10 sites. They're going to serve 1,260 youth, children, and they have over 250 staff. It's a 5-week full-day program. They provide breakfast and lunch and 2 snacks daily, and each group will be 14 children. So they'll be in cohorts of 14, and they'll have parent check-ins. So there's more, but I don't think we have time for it.
Well, what we do have a couple minutes for is I cut off the questions about the group homes and the short-term residential treatment programs because we were getting behind. But if there are any questions that I cut off that you would like to ask now, we have a couple more minutes. So did anybody else want to?
Yeah, I wanted to get in there earlier desperately, but I seen that we were pressed for time. So what I wanted to report is, I'm a part of the transitioning community, and I've always seen foster kids as part of this community as well. And so I've been working in the community as well as for NGOs where I work in behavior health. One thing I'm noticing that I noticed while I was in custody was that a lot of my friends that were from foster care were discharged to CDCR once they turned of age. And I'm running into the same problem right now working in behavior health. Many of my clients are being discharged or were discharged to the county jails or parole. And there's really no follow-up from case managers or social workers to find out how these foster kids are doing. And then the other thing, what has been reported a lot, and I know from group homes in my neighborhood, were that a lot of my friends, unfortunately, were in these group homes molested or raped by older kids that they were living with in the rooms. And so I think that the group homes, they really need to take a closer look at how these kids are housed. I'm sure they've made adjustments today, but that's just something that I'm seeing in the community, something that I've been well aware of through lived experience with my friends. And then that I'm seeing again in behavior health is just like a repeated thing of these foster kids being underserved and discharged to CDCR or probation. And there's just really no incentive or follow-up after the complex trauma they received in the care of our counties or in our departments. So I just wanted to bring that up because Susan, made so many good points there. And I just want to thank you, Susan, for bringing that up. That was a powerful presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments, Paul. Any other questions about that?
I have a comment. So Susan, my understanding of the sort of core issue with the legislation that led to the closure of a number of group homes is that there wasn't a sort of counterbalancing investment in creating more resource homes or foster homes. So, the capacity in group homes wound up going down, but the capacity in alternatives didn't go up. And so as a result, maybe kids get placed out of county because, there's now there isn't enough space for them or a place for them to go to in our county. Is that a sort of good characterization of the kind of core issue?
Well, there are not enough foster homes where the foster parents have the training to take care of a child with great trauma. And Victor's right. Some of these group homes were hideous, just horrible. And if you read some of the articles by this Joaquin Sapien, it's shocking, some of the things that went on in the group homes that he looked at. But they're group homes and they're group homes. I remember dealing with one young man who was at Hillcrest some time ago, and he had been left on a street corner by his mother, and he was picked up by his aunt. And when he was about 12, his older cousins beat up on him, and they took him away from his aunt, and they put him in a group home, and he ran away. And that was his first offense. And every time they put him in 17 different group homes, from the Oregon border to the Mexican border. He ran away from all of them. And at this point, he was 17 years old, and he had some really horribly serious charges against him. That is a child that we failed miserably. He would have probably been better off if they had handled the conditions in his aunt's home, because he was removed from anybody who actually cared about him. I mean, I petitioned the judge at the time to be able to sit in the court so he'd see at least one friendly face. And at his final disposition, the district attorney said, you've got two choices. You plead guilty to sexual knowledge of a minor, and you'll get 7 years in the California Youth Authority, or you go to trial and we'll try you as an adult and you'll get 28 years in California prison. And he was given 30 minutes to make up his mind. I mean, now this is some time ago, but there was nothing I could do. I couldn't even talk to him in that 30 minutes. I only heard about it later. Our system is broken, and I'm not sure that we know exactly how to fix it. I mean, ideally, we would train people who wanted to be foster parents and who were willing to take an older child who had major mental issues and needed really trauma-informed care. And any home, any congregate home where we send the child should really have to have people who really know what they're doing. And they need to be really carefully supervised. I agree with a lot of what Victor said, but
Susan,
the STRTP is one size fits all, and it isn't working.
Right. So what you're saying is that the sort of core issue here is that we had foster homes and group homes. Group homes definitely were not working, so the state changed that. But what we're left with now with STRTP and foster homes is not working either.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
It works better for the younger children, but for the children who are problems to deal with, it's from what I can gather, it's not working.
Right. Victor has his hand up.
Yeah.
I am well versed in this subject. I can just tell you. So if we want to one time devote more time for the commission to hear it, I think it would be a great topic. And it was what Susan brings up was definitely a concern for people who work in the field of like, where were these youth going to get housed? But to be honest, group homes were not working. They were only re-traumatizing the youth. I could send you tens of studies, and I'm sure John could too, in regards to how these group homes would continually traumatize these youth. And the more they got traumatized, the more their behaviors became more externalizing, and the outcomes became bleaker and bleaker in regards to what their futures are going to look like. The reality is, and this is just the stone cold reality, there needs to be a lot of resources put into this. I mean, a lot. And until these stories get out into the public and elected officials really take this as a crisis, which is what it is not going to get solved. And to be honest with you, foster parents do an amazing job, but Susan brings up a point. They are not, some of them are not equipped to handle with this. They need attachment theory training. They need trauma-informed care training. And also, to be honest with you, they need to be paid more. They do. And I know there's a fear that, well, if we pay them more, they're just going to be doing it for the money. And that, in my experience, you're always going to find a few bad apples for sure. But my experience is for the majority of foster parents who get into it and to begin with, it's nothing about the money. It's about because they want to fill this emotional and behavioral and traumatized need in our communities. You know, there were certain organizations that provided what we call professional parent foster homes, which actually had kind of an attachment-based model to it, where you could not give a 7-day notice. When you took this child in, you had them for at least 6 months. The organization that I worked for that was one of the pioneers of this, I think Seneca does it too now, but this was Uplift or EMQ Families First. Susan brought up Families First, actually, where the expose had done. And honestly, there were some problems there, but
pretty awful problems.
Yeah, there were definitely.
We have one more voice. Excuse me, Victor.
Yeah, I do. I'm just going to make this one point, and then I definitely want to save space for this. But these homes worked because the foster parent could not give a 7-day notice anytime the behaviors, because it takes a while for the traumatized youth to feel like it's a safe space. So they don't feel like it's going to be a cycle again of being traumatized. And you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and blow out anyways, because you're going to throw me that 7-day notice. So when they provided like a period of time where they could stabilize and they could build that attachment, there was more success. But then you can understand that when the 6 months time period became to an end, that's when a lot of these behaviors would come up again. So there needs to be some sort of the conversation about using that model and making it more long-term. And then how do you step down from there?
Okay. Amaya, you've had your hand up a long time.
Yeah, this is just a quick question. So earlier you mentioned that, for example, with Canyon Oaks, if the youth needed to be transferred to somewhere, there was no place in the county that they could be transferred to, so they'd have to be.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
Canyon Oaks is the only place in San Mateo County where children who need level 14 care can be placed in the county.
Yeah, so you mentioned, I thought you mentioned that if like they needed to be transferred, they had to be transferred out of the county.
If there's not room in Canyon Oaks, they have to be placed out of the county because there's nowhere else to place them in the county that has that level of care.
Oh, okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, well, as I said, interesting discussion. And Susan and Victor, if you'd like to structure a discussion that we can take a little
Can we
more.
let John speak a little bit since he's
since John is in
DCS
charge of
director?
John probably knows more than I do.
We're almost out of time, but
I don't know. And it seems like I missed a good discussion earlier. I apologize for missing that part of the discussion. Complex issue. So really, I just wanted to offer, I'm not exactly sure how this topic fits within the charge of this body, but if it does, I'd certainly be willing to participate for the discussions. I think there's been a lot of movement over the past many years, starting with AB 403. We have Families First Prevention Services Act Part 4, which is coming down the pipe, which is going to provide more structure around STRTP level of care. Susan, we do have one additional small program that we run as a child welfare agency called Elysian STRTP. 6 beds we converted our receiving home as a result of.
Okay.
So a total of 18 beds here in county, but to your point, still a pretty reduced number. Our numbers for STRTP level of care have reduced exponentially through the years. We're currently at 10 youth throughout our whole census that require that level of care currently. But again, complex issue, not something I guess that we can tackle all today. I'd be happy to discuss further with you all if the opportunity presents itself.
Thank you, John, and thank you all for that discussion. We're right at our ending time, so I appreciate everybody's participation and have a good evening. We'll see you next month.